This is Shape of Dreams, and I'm breaking down if this is worth a tired dad's limited gaming time. Because when you only get a little time to game, the real questions aren't just, is it fun? It's, will it actually feel fulfilling? How much will it demand from you? And more importantly, can you step away when life happens? So let's start with what you're actually getting into here. Shape of Dreams is a fast-paced, combat-heavy top-down roguelike action RPG that can be played solo or in online co-op. Battles quickly erupt into dense waves of enemy attacks and projectile-filled chaos, starting closer to bullet heaven early on, but drifting into full bullet hell territory once runs and difficulty start ramping up. Combat itself revolves around MOBA-style abilities and cooldown management, layered on top of action RPG-style movement and positioning. You select from a small but creative cast of characters, each with their own playstyle and a wide range of possible builds, ranging from a tiny girl to whatever this is. Each character functions a bit like its own class, and progression revolves around leveling both your account and individual characters while deciding how to spend your Stardust, the game's progression resource. Whether you're playing alone or alongside other players, the game ends up being surprisingly flexible, letting you make progress even during short play sessions, or letting you push your run for hours if you decide to keep going. But for a combat-heavy roguelike like this, especially one that can be played online, you gotta know if you can even step away when life happens. Surprisingly, yes, even in multiplayer. And honestly, while you can find pieces of this structure in other games, seeing all of it working together here as a complete system is something I've personally never seen before. When you're playing solo, you can pause whenever you want. Checkpoints are frequent, usually after every battle, and there's also a suspense system that lets you leave a run and come back later, even if that run lasts for hours of gameplay time and stretches across multiple days. Multiplayer also follows a similar pattern. If you join a room, you can leave whenever you need to and still keep the experience you earned from the progress you made. The run itself can continue, and other players can even join that same room later, even if the run has already been going for quite a while. Being the host is a slightly different story. If the host leaves, everyone simply disconnects. But the good news here is you still receive the experience you accumulated up to that point. And if you jump into a run late, the game boosts you a bit, so you're not starting completely from scratch, though you'll still be behind players who have been building their characters since the beginning of the run. All of this ends up making the whole system surprisingly friendly to real-life interruptions. So when you do sit down and commit to a run, what are you actually doing? The core gameplay actually starts before the run even begins. You first choose from a roster of 8 characters, each already playing differently at a baseline level. You then configure your starting abilities, or memories as the game calls them, along with parts of your build that unlock and expand as you progress, gradually increasing the pool of options available for future runs. Once the run starts, you move from area to area, battling through encounters and collecting upgrades as they appear, buffs, new memories to add or replace parts of your loadout, and shards that modify how your abilities behave. Many of these upgrades also interact with the game's elemental mechanics, letting builds revolve around synergies rather than simply stacking damage. While most roguelikes lean heavily on RNG during a run, Shape of Dreams makes things feel far more intentional. There's still randomness in what appears, but your character choice, loadout, and skill tree already push the run in certain directions, making dead runs far less common. The stages, known as worlds, encourage exploration rather than simply rushing forward. Exploring through the map means fighting more encounters, gaining experience, collecting resources, and finding upgrades that strengthen your run. As you uncover nearby areas, you'll also discover special encounters that can lead to major power spikes if things go your way. But that exploration also comes with pressure. As the run progresses, hunters chase you and expand across the map. These hunters are stronger enemies that gradually become more dangerous the more you encounter them, and force you to decide whether the extra rewards are worth the risk once they get close. And systems like these play a big role in how long a run can stretch, and whether pushing that time ends up feeling rewarding. Because of how its systems work, Shape of Dreams supports both short and long play sessions surprisingly well. And the way the game lets you step away with little to no punishment makes it feel incredibly respectful of your time. in a way you don't often see. You can jump in for a few minutes and still move your progression forward. Just be aware that some progression rewards are tied specifically to completing a run by defeating the final boss. If you decide to push further, the game also respects that extra time. Higher challenge settings can dramatically increase experience rewards, up to 4 times the progression on the highest base difficulty, letting skilled players condense much more progress into the same amount of playtime. Those accelerated spikes aren't required to enjoy the game though. Even on base difficulty, the leveling curve feels satisfying, with builds steadily growing stronger without long stretches where you feel stuck waiting for power. Runs themselves can theoretically continue almost indefinitely if your build and skill hold up. Between exploration, stronger builds, and higher challenge levels, solo runs or multiplayer sessions can extend into multi-hour play sessions. But it also doesn't take an overwhelming amount of time before most of the game opens up. Many players will have most characters, skills, and enough resources to assemble multiple full builds within roughly 40 to 50 hours, with only a handful of things left to discover beyond that. More importantly, the game is fully playable and beatable from the start. Most unlocks simply add variety rather than gating the core experience. But how long a run lasts, and whether that time feels worthwhile, is only part of the equation. The game also gives players a lot of control over how demanding that experience actually becomes. Focus can vary a lot depending on how hard you're pushing the game. Early in a run, or on easier difficulty settings, the game doesn't demand much focus. Combat is forgiving enough that you can recover from small mistakes without being immediately punished, and there were even moments where I caught myself nodding off for a second and still managed to recover without dying, somehow. Outside of combat, the pacing stays fairly relaxed regardless of difficulty. The downtime between encounters gives you space to evaluate new drops, adjust your build, and decide where you want to explore next. But once you step into the combat area, the intensity can ramp up quickly depending on how far you're pushing the run. As enemies, projectiles, and abilities begin filling the screen, the experience can shift from a bullet heaven pace into full bullet hell chaos, especially deeper into a run or when starting on higher difficulties. At that point, it can become genuinely difficult to track every incoming attack, and in extreme situations, the sheer amount happening on screen can even begin to impact performance, which only makes maintaining focus harder, particularly in multiplayer. Character choice also affects how demanding the game feels. Some characters allow for more reactive play with simpler positioning and timing, while others require constant attention to movement, spacing, and damage windows. And if you decide to push harder content, the focus demand ramps up quickly as encounters become faster, more aggressive, and more chaotic. At the same time, the game does give players some ways to ease the pressure later on, and that's where difficulty really starts to come into play. Difficulty here is extremely flexible and can appeal to both casual and more hardcore players, operating across several different layers. The first layer is the character you choose. The game even labels characters by how difficult they are to play or master, reflecting how complex their playstyles can be. That said, those ratings shouldn't necessarily discourage you. In practice, difficulty often comes down to whether a character's playstyle simply clicks with you. I actually found a character rated very easy harder to play than others simply because it didn't match how I naturally approach combat. Beyond that, the game also lets you scale difficulty directly when starting a run, with thematic tiers ranging from nap, deep sleep, ominous dream, and up to nightmare. As you progress, additional modifiers unlock that can further change how runs behave. Some increase the challenge, while others allow players to control certain pressures, like disabling hunters or allowing bosses to be affected by crowd control. You can also unlock tools that help stabilize builds, such as banning certain items from appearing or starting runs with a selected upgrade. For players looking for a pure challenge, the game also includes Limbo Mode, which pushes difficulty beyond Nightmare and removes many of the tools that normally help stabilize builds and forces several difficulty modifiers. Because of that layered structure, difficulty can range from fairly accessible runs to blink and you die levels of punishment, depending on how far you choose to push the game's systems. Now that you understand how intense and chaotic this game can get, the next question for tired dads is it actually living room friendly? The game is obviously combat heavy, but it isn't particularly graphic or gory. Because of that, it's actually pretty easy to have running in a shared space. In my house, it's been perfectly fine to play around family without anything on screen that would feel awkward in the living room. It's flashy enough to catch attention. My toddler has been thoroughly entertained watching it and even occasionally trying to play himself. Though, for some viewers, like my wife, the sheer amount happening on screen can start to feel visually overwhelming. The concept of fighting and weapon use is still pretty obvious though, so whether that's something you're comfortable having younger kids watch or interact with will ultimately be up to your discretion. But I could see this being a ton of fun for dads and kids playing together in pre-made co-op, as long as they're comfortable with the controls and the chaos. Just keep in mind there's no couch co-op here. But if you're thinking about the game beyond just a few sessions, the bigger question becomes how much long-term value the game gives beyond just simply repeating runs. One of the biggest contributors to replay value is the roster of characters. Each one plays quite differently, pushing runs towards different builds and strategies depending on who you choose. Leveling characters also rewards progression resources called Stardust, which unlocks skill nodes, upgrades, modifiers, and cosmetics. Because many of those upgrades benefit multiple characters, experimenting across the full roster and finding different synergies between them often ends up being one of the fastest ways to strengthen your favorite builds. For me, that experimentation became one of the most satisfying parts of the game. The combat feels great and occasionally even visceral, which is honestly hard to pull off in a top-down roguelite. With the sound design, especially the music, supporting both stage ambience and major fights. And constantly discovering new combinations kept pulling me back in, often unlocking something new along the way without even trying. While the number of stages you can play isn't much compared to something like Vampire Survivors, limited to only a handful, runs themselves also gain some variation as you progress. Certain objectives can alter or even replace boss encounters, which was a pleasant surprise I didn't expect. Players looking for more challenge can push the limbo mode or extend runs through stage looping, turning a single attempt into a much longer session if they're able to survive the escalating difficulty. Limbo also offers light prestige style rewards, things like a cosmetic banner and shiny colored name recognition, giving players who chase those extreme challenges something visible to show for their mastery. So, with all of that, is Shape of Dreams worth a tired dad's limited gaming time? For me, this is one of the rare times I will say, hell yes. This is one of the most time flexible games I've ever played, and I honestly haven't seen a combination of features quite like this, but Shape of Dreams gets it right for me. And a big reason for that is how the game handles your time. Between suspendable solo runs, multiplayer rooms that can stay open for hours, progression even after disconnects, and extremely customizable difficulty, Shape of Dreams works with the real life interruptions instead of punishing them, whether if you got 5 minutes to play or time to settle into a longer session. At the same time, it still gives you plenty of reasons to keep coming back. Build experimentation, chaotic fights, and those moments where a run suddenly snowballs into something powerful. The stage pool may not be massive, but between the characters, modifiers, and co-op flexibility, runs still manage to stay interesting. So, if you want a well-polished and uniquely crafted roguelite with good variety, where you can plan builds, theory craft along the way, and optimize your approach, all while flexing around your schedule, whether you got 5 minutes or 5 hours, this could be a great fit for honestly any gaming windows. Or if you just want to drop in stack damage as your build, go full chaos on a screen full of mobs and see how far you can push before everything falls apart. That works just as well. If you found this review helpful and want to see more, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'm Split, and I'm splitting. See y'all next time.